Good morning. I'm Sally Hanley, author of the Holly and Ivy Cozy Mystery Series and the standalone suspense novel, Stop the Threat. Today, we are graced with the presence of the author of the book we'll be discussing. And Judy Bush, a sister in crime, is our moderator, and Deb Richardson-Moore is our guest speaker. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Judy.
Thank you, Sally. And yes, I know Deb, and I love her book. I through any window, we just finished that, and I had to wait until this past week to even start it because I was afraid I'd forget characters' names, which I frequently do when there's, it's my brain. It has nothing to do with a book. But I wanted to start off and ask Deb a couple of questions, and then we'll get to asking questions to the rest. But this was quite. How many of you were able to read the book? Were you able to read the book?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was some complexity to this book. And I wondered if, Deb, if you had what your challenges might have been in writing this book.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks everybody for being here. This was probably the hardest book I've ever written because I kept starting different books. And I knew I wanted the hard drinking young protagonist early on. But I started out, I made her a minister because I thought, well, I wanted it to be beyond the drinking, to be beyond a social problem. And it's, her job would be in danger. I got about 12 chapters in and just got stuck. And so then I started a couple of, I'm in Key West right now. If I don't, for you, any of y'all who know me know this is not my general background writing room. But I started a couple set here and got a couple chapters in, couldn't finish. I mean, couldn't even get going. And so finally, when I landed on the idea of a gentrifying neighborhood, number one, and so that would opened up all those possibilities of the tensions. And would you know if it was a personal murder or the result of economic tensions? And then secondly, I took Riley out of first person and surrounded her with several characters who each were bringing perspectives onto the book. And so it was her, it was a young homeless man named Caleb, it was Riley's cousin who she came to live with, and then it was the cousin's next door neighbor in that developing neighborhood, gentrifying neighborhood. So with those two changes, the change in person and the change in the setting, then it took off. And so but boy, I really thought there for a while, because this was the first book I wrote in my retirement. And I retired 4 years ago, and I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to be writing a book a year now. And man, it just it kind of shocked me, and I sort of panicked because I thought, well, there's no guarantee I can keep writing. And so so anyway, I was very glad when it did start going.
I want to ask you also about some of your influences. I know that you have worked with homeless through being a pastor yourself. And I just wondered if you did a composite of characters that people you knew, or where did your influences come from for your characters?
Yeah, absolutely. Caleb, who is 21, and he's the son of a meth addict, and who grew up, in Greenville, well, what I call Greenbrier, but Greenville County. He was a composite of all kind of teenagers I met over the years, and we tried so hard. For those of you who don't know, I was pastor of the Triune Mercy Center in Greenville for 15 years, and we dealt with a whole lot of homeless people and had both as church members and outreach. And we tried so hard with those teenagers because so many of the people we dealt with, their life, we could help them, you know, maybe get housing, maybe get, you know, I don't even know, work, certainly a church community. But a lot of times their lives were not going to change a whole lot. You know, they were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. So when we got teenagers who were homeless and, you know, who were drug addicts or alcoholics or thought living on the street was a big party, which is more common than you might think, um, we tried so hard because we knew they had a chance at life. And that was what it was. Those, I was thinking of you, those young boys, when I was writing that character of Caleb. And I'm telling you, a lot of them, boy, you know, a lot of us start life on first or second or third base. They started, you know, they weren't even on the field. Because when I can't tell you the number of young men who told me their mothers had given them drugs at age 13. And, you know, that kind of thing. And you just feel like, man, you know, you're starting in a real hole. And that was what I wanted to portray with Caleb.
Right. I think so many, I think addiction has hit so many families. So even if it isn't in your immediate family, it's often in our extended family. So I think many, many people can relate to that. You have made an interesting comment. I love what you said here, but I want you to expand on it. You said that the economics has nothing to do with the person you are. In other words, it doesn't matter if you're at the high end of society or the very lowest end of society, that there are good and bad people in every area of the economic strata that we have in our culture. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because you know, I was trying to avoid two things. Number one, making all the homeless people noble, you know, or making them all or all the gentrifying people bad. You know, I was trying really because neither one is true. You have people moving into gentrifying neighborhoods for good reasons, and you have criminal elements hiding among the homeless population. So all is neither good nor bad. But I have to tell you, during my time at Triune, I saw a lot of bad people, quite frankly. But I also saw some instances of generosity of spirit that absolutely amazed me. I saw people who would give their last, they would have these grocery cards for food stamps, and somebody would give their last $10 on a grocery card to somebody else they had just met who had just come to Greenville. Um, they would pull the last quarters out of their pocket to put in the offering plate. There was one man who had gotten a job. We had worked with him a lot. He, you know, around the church, and he had gotten a job way out on the east side, building in construction, building a Walmart or something out there. And he showed up to church one Sunday, and I said, "How did you get here? We thought, you know, we weren't going to see you for a while." He had paid $22 for a cab ride to get to church. Now I know
Wow.
he did not have $22 to spare, but you know that those kinds of just amazing all I can say is grace-filled moments that
Yeah.
we saw. And you know, and then people coming in to help, obviously around the church, you know, and not getting paid when I knew they needed paying, but they chose instead to help out in our food pantry and pack other people's groceries in their car when they had no groceries or no car or no home to take groceries to. You know, just things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That, I know there are a lot of us who volunteer and do things like that. And the stories we hear are so gratifying, and it makes us have a new perspective of life for us, and also a new perspective when we look at all the bad things in the news and the things we don't like about politics. You come back to these things that really speak to your heart, and it really increases your hope um, for for any area you live in where we're seeing those kinds of generosities. Your characters were all flawed. They
What?
all your characters all had flaws. Even your
Oh,
main
yeah.
character was very flawed, but I thought she was believable. I was rooting for her. And I wondered what others thought. What did the rest of you think about? Was there a character that you specifically identified with more than others? And it doesn't have to be the main character. And hopefully it's not Rayanne.
Well, you know me, I'm never one to sit back, so I definitely uh felt that the characters were so well drawn. And the way you introduced them was masterful, because frequently, you know, you get introduced to a whole bunch of characters in the first couple chapters and then you can't keep them straight, but you did them one at a time. And immediately they became three-dimensional characters. They weren't caricatures in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know that. Well, I think Riley, definitely your heart is with her from the beginning, because she's obviously been through a bad experience, not totally.
Innocent.
Yeah, I mean, she was at fault for what happened, but but not really, you know, so but she was caught in a very bad place. So yeah, definitely I was with her from the beginning. And you know, you just have the impression that she was not responsible for the bad things that continued to happen to her. And her cousin, you know, like if there's a somebody that you really didn't want anywhere near you, cousin was the one. But yeah, I thought what you did with the characters was amazing. And also, you know, as you mentioned, Caleb, such a well-drawn portrait of a character that made you understand these kids that are out there, and how, yeah, as you said, you know, how do they even get off the ground when they're starting so far behind because of their parents and their circumstances.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Sally.
You started out, it wasn't really a prelude, but it was kind of a prelude in the book, and the night of, and you ended that with this phrase, rocked and rocked and rocked. And then later in the book, I don't know exactly which chapter right now, but you did this again. You brought up this scene and you repeated it. I thought that was brilliant. I've not seen that before in a story, but I thought it was brilliant because it's such a hook. It just hooked the reader.
Well, you want to know something is I have a writer's group, you know, as I'm sure most of you do. And when I first structured this book, I structured that night of coming back in about several different times. You know, that they would go back and, you know, instead of just the beginning and then the whatever that was halfway through. And then at the very end, I had it, you know, several times. And, you know, each time revealed a little bit more about what was going on. And then it went back to the lead up. But my writers group told me that they thought that took them out of the story too much.
Yeah.
And so I completely redid it to what it is now. And I've never been sure that was the right thing to do.
Well, I, for one, loved it. I loved it because it became the hook to get me even into the book.
Yeah, but I wonder if even having more of those would have worked, because I had read a book that did that. It had it, you know, had it go, you know, 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
And but anyway, I took their advice, because all of them, you know, when all 3 or 4 of them say something, I usually take their advice. If it's just one and the others going, no, that was okay, you know, I won't. But all of them were saying, no, it really pulled them out of the story. So
What did I'm jumping around here, but that's my mind, my brain. But this question is for all of you readers. Did the ending surprise you? What did you think of the ending? Talk about the ending to me. Nobody? I thought it was very interesting. And the very end, y'all did read the book, right?
Yeah,
Denise
I
just
didn't see
unmuted.
I did not see that coming.
No.
That last, I did not think that she actually killed her. Sorry, my voice is bad today.
What was interesting is you gave us a clue about that with the cushion in the book. And then at the very end, she was the thing I wondered when I got to the scene where it talked about towards the very end, it talked about this one had a gun pointing in the pool house. This one had a gun. This one had, I'm thinking, wouldn't it? I was thinking they're all going to shoot each other at one point.
Exactly.
But you had, yeah, so it was a lot of possibilities of who the actual murderer really was. But that was kind of a shock to me. But in a way, because I think as an author, you have to get rid of that character somehow, or you have to at least, I don't know. I thought it fit.
The thing that when the detectives would talk, that's when you understood the true complexity of this crime scene, right? And how no matter what scenario they came up with, one thing didn't fit, right? Like the cushion. And I'm thinking, why would he have smothered her? You know, it really made it very difficult to figure out who done it.
Yes, it did.
Because
Yeah.
it was very complicated, you know, it
Very
wasn't one person who done it. Yeah, that I thought that was amazing.
Well, you know, I'm sure y'all face this in your writing too. As those ideas occurred to me later on, and Rayanne, because Rayanne did not start out to be much a part of the book at all. And so once I hit on that idea late, I had to go back and put scenes of her, you know, killing the crab, you know, and scenes of her, you know, just being so awful as a teenager and all that, because like I say, she had hardly existed in the beginning. So,
well, didn't she's the one who killed Silas, right?
yes, yeah.
I mean, that
Like
was
I
right
say,
in the beginning of the book.
That didn't really occur to me till, do y'all write like that? I just kind of start. And so then as it takes shape, because I don't outline, then as I thought, okay, she needs to be if you know, if I'm going to have Riley murder her, there's got to be a reason, right? You know, and so I had to go back and plant all that stuff.
Ah, interesting.
What grabbed you at the beginning of the book, or did you have to get into the book a ways? Where did you get grabbed into the story where you said, I've got to read the rest of this? Was there a certain point?
I don't know. I was hooked from the beginning. I just, you know, like, especially as the characters, each chapter was a different character speaking. And so, you know, that you just wanted to learn about each one and figure out how did they all tie in together. But I think well, again, what I think was masterful and why I think this is your masterpiece, Deb, is, you know, the way that you handled the issue of gentrification, which again is something that you understand so well because of your work. It was neither, you could see both sides.
Yeah, that was what I was trying.
You did that so even-handedly, where, you know, these people have been in this neighborhood forever. This homeless mission was there, well established, and all of a sudden developers come in and start buying the properties and renovating them, and now all these people that move in want the people that are there out. They don't want them as their neighbors.
Mhm.
And you can understand that too, especially when a crime occurs and it's one homeless person commits a crime and then the whole thing has to go. They just can't have it in their neighborhood. And you can understand that too. But, for the poor people who, especially, I think the people who sell early and sell at low prices, but they're higher than anything they had ever hoped for, but then find that there's no place that they can go with that money and afford to buy anything better. And then the developers within a year or two, like triple their money. So you understand that resentment. It was, you really, it was really well done. And at the end of the book, I don't know what the solution to gentrification is. It seems like it's a horrible thing, but you could see both sides, and at the same time, you could see the need to for communities to try to, like, especially for those of us who grew up in the 60s or grew up, I grew up in New Jersey in the 60s. It's like white flight took place in downtown, little downtowns, just the stores left, there was nothing. And then the malls all got built way out, nowhere near a downtown area. And these downtowns were left to just wither away and die. And ironically, in the town where I lived, um, it's the Hispanic Latino populations are the ones that came in and rebuilt the downtown areas, and they're the ones that created vibrant downtowns again. But that's beside the point. But the fact of the matter is, you want to see the downtowns revitalized. You want that.
Mhm.
And it's
But it's
just
the how. It's more the
yeah,
how than the what.
yeah. There are so many people who just get left behind when that happens.
So because this book was, it really, the background, the setting is a situation that we're all familiar with and all concerned about, as Sally has just mentioned. So did anything in this book change your opinion about anything? Or did you learn something new from it? Or did it confirm your opinion of something or confirm an idea that you already knew? What did anything, talk to me about how that being set in gentrification as being the background in a way, how did that confirm or change your opinion of anything? Doesn't have to be for or against. It can be, like, for example, I look at people, a lot of people don't know, when you see a homeless person, do we give to them? Do we give them money? Or do we tell them to go get help at a shelter, or, and how much do you give them? And there's always that. Some people will give no matter what. They just give. Every time they see somebody, they will give. So I'm wondering if that comes into how we treat people who are homeless, if that's a good thing, if it's not a good thing. I'd like to hear your opinion about it. What do you think?
I give them food. I don't give them money because a lot of times, unfortunately, homeless people have, like you had mentioned in the book, drug or alcohol addictions. So I'm very leery of that they'll go out and buy a bottle. But if the guy's hungry, I certainly would give him, and I have many times given them food, cup of coffee, whatever, just to, help them out a little.
You must,
Darlene, I'm in your camp.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what we all recommended, almost all of us in homeless services, that was fine. But yeah, money was 95% of the time going to drugs or alcohol.
I believe it. Yeah.
You know, addiction is just a terrible thing to deal with, and it's difficult, I'm sure, for you as a worker in that field, you know, to deal with because they're not in their right mind.
Yeah, but
Right.
I came to believe it was easier for us as our church because we were set up. We expected that. We knew walking in the door what we were dealing with, whereas a lot of other churches just getting it sporadically or getting approached on the street. You're not sure. But yeah, we worked, obviously we sent about 1,800 people into drug treatment during my time there. And so that was what we were saying. No, we're not going to give you money, but yeah, we will help you make, truly get over this problem if that's what you want to do.
Because finding a bed is one of the hardest problems that these people encounter if they want help.
Oh, well,
Shelter, yeah.
actually, we kind of pioneered something in that. We had a gentleman on staff who would move mountains. He would get them settled in one of the shelters, Rescue Mission or Salvation Army, until he could get a bed just to keep them off drugs long enough to get them into a treatment facility. And then he would pack up a suitcase full of clean clothes and shampoos and all that and drive them. I mean, Florence, Greenwood, Easley, wherever, Anderson, wherever he had found them a bed, because what we found was they did better out of Greenville if Greenville had been their drugging ground. And so he really had an incredible relationship, with the jails and with courts and judges in placing people.
I think it is such a big topic. It's a topic and an issue that doesn't, I imagine it's not decreasing the amount of homeless, but increasing. Is that right? Would you say, Deb?
I have no idea, Judy.
Okay, I don't.
Yeah, and even when I've been retired 4 years, but even when I was in the middle of it, it was just so hard because we dealt with, almost every. That's not true. A lot of people weren't homeless who came to Triune, but we were dealing with so much of the street population, and it seemed like it never really. It was always there. It was there during the downturn in the economy. It was there when the economy got good again. Yeah.
One of the things that struck me was, I think it was in a conversation with Caleb, somebody said that they, that sometimes the homeless men would commit some small crime so that they'd get thrown into jail for a couple of days because they'd get a bed and 3 square meals a day. And that was shocking, to think that people would do that and prefer to be in jail. But when you looked at Caleb's life, living, sleeping in a potting shed to save money, and you really were rooting for him because he was trying so hard. And then, the moment when the mother came and you knew she wanted whatever he could give her, she was going to take off him. And you wonder, how does somebody, like, for anybody who like had a fight with their mother over silly stuff, you wonder, how do these kids, survive being treated that way by their mother? How do you not just want to give in to drugs yourself and just.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did you think about that situation where he calls his uncles because he thinks there might be part of his inheritance that maybe he can claim? He's also seeing his stepbrother, who's being raised in this wonderful environment where he has luxuries, anything he wants, basically, he could have. So he's seeing this gentrify, his stepbrother, but yet he doesn't have anything. And he tries to go and find out if there's an inheritance for him, and then finds out that his mother that they did indeed give her share, which was small, but still it was something. And she spent it all on her drugs, and he had nothing. The fact that he didn't go berserk with just jealousy or being upset, I mean, he really controlled himself amazingly well. That character did, I thought. Because jealousy between siblings, and especially if one has everything and it's so obvious. So readers, what did you think about that?
Well, I thought for sure it was extremely important to have a counterpoint to the mother who had no redeeming quality.
Right.
Not one. Okay. You needed somebody, I mean, she was just, she was a liar. I mean, she was the worst of everything that you've ever heard about drug addicts. And
stealing from her
suspect
son.
very strongly that she wasn't a very nice person without drugs either.
Right, probably not. Yeah.
But then you look at Riley and Rayanne, who were raised in the same home.
Yeah.
You have one that's, pretty good. I mean, had issues, but then the other one who was so bad and so jealous, and what that created among those two siblings.
And that was a counterpoint also, because there you had that when she showed up, you knew she wanted everything that was Riley's. The same thing. If whatever she could get, she was going to take from her. Yeah. It would, in both those situations, I felt so, I wanted to hurt somebody.
Oh. Well, again, it comes down, the jealousy between siblings is easy to see that in both of those situations. But I do like that counterpoint that you did in the book. That was brilliant.
I don't think it was all jealousy. I think a lot of it was just her personality. I mean, look at your own family and how different everyone is. But she was just not a nice person. I mean,
Rayanne.
And Riley was more of a giver, and that's not a good situation.
And also the fact that, you felt sorry for Riley, knowing that she felt partially responsible because she introduced the sister to drugs. But, let's go back to the ending, because, we're talking about the fact that you didn't expect that, that Riley had murdered her sister. But the fact that Caleb knew.
Yes.
That was one more piece of that crime scene, right? He was there. He saw something. Everybody saw something. And he saw her do that. And but he
cared for her.
He was gonna cover for her. He was not gonna report anything that he had seen, which was, but and your ending was, the last sentence was that, like, sometimes she even convinced herself that she wasn't guilty, but she, you don't take a life without feeling guilt. And that was she had to live with that.
Tell me what you thought about Michaela. And of course, Michaela's husband was Luke. They were the rich Hardys, the cousin. And she was really a conniving she was just, to me, she was just as guilty. She just was underhanded about it, more planning behind the scenes, manipulating to get the crime done. She should have divorced him rather than kill him or try to get him killed, especially the way she planned it. So what did you think about that? That character?
I think she was a mess. Sorry.
Go ahead, Darlene.
I just think she was a mess. I don't think I do. That was my opinion. I thought you developed the characters very well. That was one of the things that interested me in your story, including the first thing I noticed was it was well written. So I was interested right away in reading the book. But yeah, I think from the very beginning you got the sense that she went with the wind, as they say, the blowing of the wind.
Mhm.
And the fact that he got murdered and she didn't have to do it was just like,
Yeah, yeah. Clean hands, but dirty mind.
it was,
Scheming.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
She would have.
Yeah, and she would have gladly put the blame on Riley. I mean, she planned to have Riley responsible for it because
Mhm.
it replicated the first crime. And she would have gone down for that because I don't think they would have ever believed that she was involved twice in murders with married men, right? And not guilty. So yeah, her cousin was just really.
And what did you think of Luke? I mean, he seemed to have a problem.
Haven't we all seen him before?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like the character Roman also. He was a minor character, um, but he owned this pizza by the park, or he was the manager of it or the owner. I thought he was a good character in that he overlooked some things he could have fired Riley for or Caleb for, but he gave them, he was the kind of guy who gave people second chances. And to even hire them in the first place, knowing that they had problems and issues. So, what did you think of that character? Um, any of the characters you want to talk about? And let's just throw in we have Roman, but then we have Miller Washburn, who was the first detective way back in, was it Mobile, when Silas was killed. So we have that going on. So what did you think of that detective compared to Patrick and Siobhan? Is it Siobhan? Is that how you say it? Anybody want to talk about those characters or anything you liked about them, what you didn't like?
Yeah, well, Washburn was a distinctly unlikable, but he redeemed himself at the end. That
He
was
did, didn't he?
he acknowledged that it was his fault that he didn't know that there was a lookalike sister
Right.
who could have been at the crime scene.
Mhm.
And so you were able to forgive him. Uh, you know, it was okay. He was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to say about what you liked, or even if you didn't like something, bring it up anyway. I don't think Deb would mind. Hopefully.
Well, there wasn't anything that I didn't like. I thought it was really in every way it was complex, which I think sometimes I'm a cozy mystery writer, so my books are not complex, right? And I like reading non-complex stories, but this one was uh truly, you know, thought-provoking and like I said, the the gentrification issue, I've always only seen it from the point of view of like, oh yeah, they're just, getting all these poor people and pushing them out of the neighborhoods. But um, I looked at it differently after reading this, and it's as with all life, there's good and bad, but then there's just conflict that occurs when two forces go up against one another that aren't necessarily good or bad. It's just that they are in conflict and um it seems to me like we're never able to solve those complex issues. You know, like maybe if but see, because now you need the public sector, which we weren't really dealing with all that much, you know. the- we need public leaders who go, okay, we will do this, but we need to have affordable housing for the people that we're displacing, you know, and we don't do that. And I think, I don't know if that's the answer either, but the book was really eye-opening for a lot of things, for a lot of reasons.
That's why I liked so much what you said about the economics has nothing to do with the person you are. That does sound like a pastor talking, to be honest with you. That no matter, because you can have the evil rich person, the evil banker, you could have the evil, and you know, all the way down. And I think that is true. And yet it's so easy to say, well, those people over there are the bad guys, and we over here are the good guys. And I think it's really, really good to just reconfirm that, which we already know. We all know this, but it was just confirmation to say, yeah, we've got problems in our society that need to be looked at, but we also have to not blame a whole section of people. And I thought that was well done in your book.
I had an associate pastor who bought in Nickeltown, she and her husband, and I knew them very, very well, and I knew their hearts, and they wanted to live in solidarity with the poor, is why they did that. And then I had a board member who he and his wife bought over in that Poe Mill area, you know, adjacent to the church, and I knew his heart, and he there wanted to be in solidarity with the people they were serving. However, as gentrification happened in both of those neighborhoods, I heard them both voice ambivalence of what they were doing. You know, they weren't sure they were doing the right thing. Could their very presence be, I don't know, raise taxes, raise, you know, were they pushing somebody else out, you know, who perhaps could have afforded. So yeah, it's not easy. It's, you know, and I guess just having lived it out and seen all those sides of it helped not have just black and white.
Exactly.
So yeah, there,
They
those are,
have children?
beg pardon?
Did they have children? The pastors, assistant pastors?
I think by that, I know my associates, they were grown and out of the house. I'm not sure of my board member if they were still young enough to have children in the home. Why? Why do you ask?
I'm just curious because that opens up another can of worms. You know, it's one thing to
Huge.
make a decision for yourself, it's another for your children.
Yeah.
As far as the school districts, not the, I like people getting together. That's not the problem, but the education part of it, and that is normally not as substantial as in another neighborhood, unfortunately. It shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about that.
Sort of like missionaries when they have children and they go to places, it'd be similar, I would think. But anyway, well, I thought this was a good book. If anybody has any other comments, if I went over your comment, you want to say something, please say something now, or otherwise I will say thank you very much.
I didn't come in the beginning, but are you writing another book or what is your,
Yeah, I've got one at the publisher now, and they haven't let me know when it's coming out. But sometime I'm sure in 2025. And then I'm down here just starting another one.
this be in the same vein or?
No, it's real different. It's the one that's at the publisher now is called The Last Beach Town, and it's set down on a barrier island of South Carolina, and yeah, completely different.
Murder mystery?
Murder mystery, but
Suspense,
much
suspense,
less
thriller.
complex.
I thought you did well with it, even planting the clues and, you know, we shouldn't have been surprised at the ending as far as how much she hated her for the murder of her boyfriend. And I thought that was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Judy, you want to give us a preview of our final book in your moderation series?
Okay. Yeah, this is a hard act to follow, Deb. I'm going to be doing my book, Envy to Death. And this is a suspense thriller. It is clean, pretty much. It's clean. But it has to do with friends and the two women friends who are amateur sleuths. So it has cozy components. It has a bit of noir in it, components, and it is definitely a suspense. So there's some mental illness going on with one of the characters, and you'll see.
Do you have a copy of your book? Do you have your copy of your book with you?
I have it downstairs. I should have brought it with me. I wanted to make sure I had Deb's book.
And what's the name of it? What's the name of it, Judy?
It's Envy to Death.
Envy to Death. Okay.
And
Judy, is it
yeah,
available for Kindle?
Sally will put it up. It's
Yeah.
on the email.
It is, it's available on Kindle.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, we'll
Yes.
close. Thank you all for your attendance, and the recording of this program will be posted within a day or two. And thank you, Deb, for joining us. Much
Thank you all so
appreciated.
much for reading. I really appreciate it.
And yeah,
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
great discussion. See you next time.
Sign of a good book, right? Lots of good discussion.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry I had no comments because I hadn't read it, so I'm a little bit,
No
Next time.
problem. We'll catch you next time. Okay.
All right.
Bye, everybody.